Well, hello and welcome everyone. So nice to be here. I am Gustavo Tolosa. Today, I am very excited to bring this webinar with a doctor that is truly making a very big difference in the world. But before I introduce you to him, let me show you this 5-minute video so that you can see him in action. And after that, we can get on with our interview. So a little video, 5 minutes, that I think it's really fun to watch. Enjoy.
This is like a dream come true. I'm now meeting with patients, getting them in a group, trying to heal them through food and nutrition. Unbelievable. And so the idea is we got 36 patients.
The dividing line in this neighborhood, other than Inwood and Washington Heights, was Broadway. And everything east of Broadway was the Dominican community. Does the community have the power, and is it an ingredient in what you're trying to do? I would say to you that's the only way you could do it.
Oftentimes people think that collaboration have to be a concrete thing. You have to give me something. But how about when you give me your love, your friendship, your respect, honesty, brotherhood, sisterhood, and not money?
Patients, they're invited to be part of things, projects, pilots, and they say, just don't be one other person coming here, using us, taking the data, whatever, and then leaving. Stay, come celebrate, bring us the results, tell us what the story is about. Let us be part of that.
So we have a project that we're getting ready to launch across the country, and it's targeting young people. It's focused on the issue of nutrition and the environment. And I would love to do that here. So how many students do you have?
You have an open invitation. The campus have 2,000 students.
2,000 students.
La comunidad es maravillosa. Nuestra comunidad es una comunidad virgen, una comunidad emprendedora y una comunidad dispuesta a los cambios, siempre y cuando tú le hables con la verdad y le des seguimiento.
She's one that connects all of the different public schools in the community.
43 schools she works, and she handles all the parents in 43 schools.
Oh my goodness.
43 escuelas.
We've been doing a lot of amazing work in this neighborhood to try to increase the level of options for healthy items for our community. How do we make it affordable? And then the other part is also education.
You're in a position, being, with how you are with all restaurants and the power that you have, you can influence. How many restaurants do you talk to?
Probably like over 80, 90.
All right, and they're mostly in this area? Okay.
You know how difficult it is to get this space in New York. I don't know if you realize this. We've been looking with Tom before.
It's tremendous.
And it is, it's almost, space.
When you even see the kitchen downstairs, they just renovated their entire kitchen.
Well, we can prepare our food.
All the demonstrations, if you're going to have classes here for all the
this
other
is
stuff.
True. This is true. This is amazing.
Then there are other churches that can connect with different clinics to train them how to eat.
Jumpstart program involves 10 days of a deep dive into a whole food, plant-based diet.
El sueño es estar con todos ustedes hablando de nutrición como medicina.
Mi orientación aquí en el programa es poder, a pesar de que estoy joven, sufro de presión alta y tengo hipotiroidismo. Quisiera rebajar y poder bajar también. Tengo colesterol alto y quiero bajar el colesterol. Esta es mi meta aquí en el programa.
Fui operada de tiroides, me salió 70% cáncer, tengo grasa en el hígado y yo hago mucho batido de mucha hoja verde, proteína en la mañana, me gusta mucho las nueces, pero también me gusta el picado y arroz. Y espero que este programa sea para bien para mi salud.
But it's also an opportunity for you to start something that will lead to a bigger strategy in this community. I see your sense of community and your culture and you as a gift to this country.
We're going to do it because we want to show the community and we want to show the outside world that this is working. That's why we are asking you, commit yourselves. I ask my patients, give me 10 days.
Okay, excellent. I hope you enjoyed the video. It is my privilege to introduce you to Dr. Diego Ponieman, and I promise you will have a great time today. Dr. Diego Ponieman is working with underserved Latino communities in New York City, mainly trying to reverse the process of acculturation these populations have gone through while helping them to go back to their original plant-based diets that are based on rice and beans or potatoes and sweet potatoes or whatever it was, the food that they were eating back home when they had less chronic diseases. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Welcome from New York City, Dr. Diego Ponieman. Thank you for your time today. I know that you're a very busy man. You're actually right after this going to the airport to leave for Italy for a symposium. So thank you for being here and welcome. How are you doing?
Gustavo, what a pleasure, what an honor to be here, sitting on the other, side of the line. I am a fan of your, webinars with Dr. McDougall, when you are the web host. So for me, it's a privilege to be now on the other side, just talking to you and doing this discussion. A pleasure to be here with you.
Very good. Well, really, the pleasure is mine, but thank you very much. So I have a lot of questions that I'd like to ask you, but first, let me start asking you I'm just interested, what made you choose a career in music and where did it all start?
So let me correct you, Gustavo. It wasn't in music. My career was in medicine. But I'm gonna I'll let you know. You are the master in music.
I'm thinking about music.
That's fine. I can see how you have the music running through your veins. So I think that I was very, very young, Gustavo. I think this was in the 60s back in Argentina. And, my family was great, but, my family was having some issues. My mom was an alcoholic and, she was a very loving mother, but, as alcoholics, it happened to any addiction. One thing would, turn her disease on, she would relapse and she would start, screaming, and there was, the dynamics of the house would change. And what I remember is our family doctor. Many times we were four, siblings, we were having some issues. We were healthy kids, but having some issues. And this family doctor that he would do home visits would come to my house. As soon as he would put his step into the house, everything would be calm. He was a guy that would sit down. Listen to this, Gustavo. Would sit down and listen, and he was like a Zen master coming to the house, I would say. And I remember this family doctor. We were feeling better as soon as he would step into the door, as I said. And I wanted to be like him. I said, I want to do that. And I have to tell you, this was 40 or more. I mean, I'm 55, so this was like 50 years ago. I when a patient, the best compliment a patient can tell me is, Doctor, thank you for listening. Thank you for being there. So that's what basically took me to help people to do medicine.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. And now the next question is how, of course, you're from Argentina, I'm from Argentina, you're in New York now working. How did you end up in New York, and how did you end up working with this wonderful organization that is called Somos? If you can tell us a little bit about it.
So I came to New York in 1995 and wanted to do primary care medicine. So I was searching the programs. I was lucky enough to be in a program, Gustavo, back then, where we would do internal medicine, but with the primary care. It was social medicine, actually, in the Bronx, here in the Spanish Bronx in New York. And we were doing home visits. We were talking about, psychology. We were seeing the patient as a whole, on top of doing the classic, medicine, ICU, emergency medicine, clinic. But we were having that spin. And I would love it. I would never, thought that I would, find a place like that. But I have to tell you, basically the person to blame why I'm here is my wife, Barbara. She's also from Argentina. We've been together since 1989, so more than or 30 years, and she's a psychiatrist. So actually, we came to the U.S. Because of her. She started her residency before me, and then again, I started in the Bronx, seeing mostly Latinos. And I was, since the get-go, I was thinking, and I think about your introduction, Gustavo, patients were telling me, most of them from rural Dominican Republic, from rural Latin and South America, and they were telling me that they were very healthy back home until they came to the US. And I started to put those things together. Here, what happened in the US, why these people were saying we're thriving on rice and beans, Gustavo, and vegetables. And what happened, here in the US, they started to add the chicken and the cheese and the pizza and the double cheese and the pepperoni. And you could tell that they were blending. They said, I want to go home, not because we love the American dream. We like how we feel here in America, but I would want to go home to get healthier again. So what they were telling me is I wanted to go home, to go and get the food that I was getting back home.
Right. Well, that is something that really caught my attention in one of the conversations that I had with you before. And I think that it would be nice for people to know, how or what made you consider a plant-based and starch-centered diet as a way to treat patients, to treat obesity and these chronic diseases. What was there a click? Was there something you saw or someone you met?
Well, I have to tell you, the truth is that about 10 years ago, I saw, two things happened with my patients. One is, food poison, and we're going to get into that. But the other thing was stress. I thought that there was a lot of stress. Everybody complains about stress and sleep. And so I started working with mindfulness. I brought some mindfulness into my patients. It was about 10 years ago. I started to read John Kabat-Zinn, who was the person, I would say he's the John McDougall of the mindfulness. He brought mindfulness meditation to the West, world. He brought it, and then he used it in the Massachusetts General Hospital. So I started to work with my patient. We started to drop the ball together. I would conduct mindfulness sessions. Everything was good, but there's something missing. So I started to do some reading on what would the Buddhist monks eat. And I realized that they were having 3 bowls, right? The bowl of rice, the bowl of water, and the bowl of vegetables, and the compassion for the animals. So I said, there has to be something along with the meditation, with the food. So I started to read, and guess what? I got to read the China study. So that changed, that blew my mind. And then I said, I want to see who is doing this with real patients, who is applying this. And I came across, a book by, John McDougall, which is the one that person that I've been following with you all along. And I said, this is the real deal. So let me tell you, Gustavo, I started to apply. I was not eating that much meat back then, but I was doing some fish, etc. So I started with me. And lo and behold, my blood pressure went away. My obesity, I lost 60 pounds. I started to drop my Lipitor. I was on Lipitor for 10 or 15 years. So everything changed. So I said, this is what I'm going to start. So all what I do now is talk to my patients about nutrition, about a plant-based diet, Gustavo.
Right. Dr. Ponieman, I know that a large number of your patients are Hispanic patients, if I'm correct. And once you told me that something that really caught my attention, because it proves that the problem is really the food. It's not the genes, and it's not how much people eat. Most of the time, it's what they eat. Can you share your experience with us about what you've seen in these generations of people and how they have changed, and how it's the food?
Yeah. Before going there, I wanted to explain to you, Gustavo, and I think you asked me the question. I started with something else about Somos. So let me tell you, I did regular internal medicine training, and then I did a fellowship on academic medicine. And now we're going to understand how I ended up. And I did it in El Barrio, in upper Manhattan. I did my fellowship in academic medicine, and I said, but let me see, this is not what I wanted. I wanted to continue having that interaction with people. So then is when I opened my practice in El Barrio, in 110th Street in Harlem, in East Harlem. So I started to be a private practitioner, seeing patients. And I realized I was the primary care physician, the neighborhood physician. And I put staff in my office that was speaking Spanish, and the phlebotomist, and the person that cleaned the floors, and myself. There was a clinic like if you were in Latin America. And I found, Gustavo, that there were other doctors on the same page. There were other doctors like me. There was a neighborhood physician led by Dr. Ramon Talash in the Latino world. So we got together under his leadership. And believe it or not, a few years ago, the city of New York, or the state of New York, wanted to do a program in which they wanted to change the delivery system. They want to change the healthcare system. And we applied for that grant. It's called DISRIP. And we got this independent group of physicians. We're about 3,000 that are independent. And we wanted to work with New York because we wanted to decrease unnecessary and avoidable admissions to the hospital. And we realized, Gustavo, that everything is down to the community. So people live, thrive, go to church, buy the food, spend all the time in the community. And these hospitals are huge, are intimidating. So we wanted to work our basis through the community. Our grassroots was in the community. So that's what we got together. We are about, again, 3,000 physicians. We have about 1 million patients, all Medicaid, all underserved populations, mostly Latino, but we have a big group that is Chinese. And again, I can tell you the same thing with the food with the Chinese. Again, rural, China. These people are from basically China, where they were thriving on rice, and they come here and they change their diet. So that's exactly what we are doing with Somos. We are getting together this physician. We're trying to bring programs. We have about 10 projects, and food nutrition, it's our main, I would say now it became mine, at least my main project. So again, I'm sorry I went a little bit, but that's, I wanted to. And when I see a patient, the first 30 minutes, it's very easy, as you can tell, rice and beans to the Latinos. I tell them, I give them permission. They don't understand. They're so, they have demonized this food for so long because, again, they're here. They tell them that rice and beans are bad. So let me tell you a few examples of how I work with patients. There was a lady, her hemoglobin A1C, which is the marker for diabetes, was off the roof. So I started to work with her, and we started changing the diet, but still to more starch-based, to vegetables, to grains, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, legumes. Still something has happened. So her measures were not improving. So what I did is I did a home visit. our organization almost allowed us to do home visits with Medicaid patients. I went to a patient home and said, let's start cooking together. I want you to walk me through how you cook. And I realized that the lady was doing a great Dominican rice, but she was adding the green oil. They call it el aceite verde, the green oil, basically olive oil in this case. And that was the case. When the patient stopped doing that, she basically started to improve. Let me give you another example. That's why I spend lots of time talking to people about their diet and basically trying to see what's the starch, because I think that that's the main food. This lady from Kenya that came and see me, again, a lot of medical conditions, medical problems. We started working together, Gustavo, and half an hour it took me for her to describe the main dish back home in Kenya. And this was basically a cornmeal. This was like maize, and it was, a flour made by corn that she would do with water. And then when it was cold, she would grab it with her fingers and put vegetables. And if she was having guests at home, she would not do it with her fingers. Of course, she would do it. So those are the things that I start discussing with my patients. And again, before Gustavo, people would be 1 year later in the classic way of doing medicine at the same point. I would come 1 year later and the patients would be having the same exact problems. Diabetes, as I left the diabetes a year ago, the hypertension, the cholesterol, the constipation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the skin, with these changes, patients start to thrive. It's so rewarding to see these patients. And I can tell you, I don't know if we have time, but now with Somos, we're getting with the physicians together. We're doing cooking classes together. We're bringing some, help. And let me add something to this, conversation, Gustavo, because we believe in the community. We're doing a lot of work, and I'm going to talk to you about the programs that we do. But we believe that the clinic has to be in the neighborhood. And then we have what we call community health workers. These are people, this is what we call our secret sauce. These community health workers from the community that are working with the patients and helping them navigate the system. They help them shop. They help them, with all the problems. It's so difficult to navigate the health system. This is exactly what we're doing. And I'm going to tell you, I can describe one of the programs, but I can keep going on and on and on. I'm not Dr. McDougall. I'm getting close. I'm getting close to him, right?
No, it's just it's all very interesting. And I know that a few months ago, people could probably see you walking in the streets of New York being followed by this film, crew. Tell us a little bit about that fun and maybe weird experience to be followed for I don't know how many days.
Yeah. So this is the thing, Gustavo. I was basically trying to look for a solution through Medicaid and through our patients and in the neighborhoods that we're working. So I said, there are three things to convince people. First is basically put them in an inpatient unit, like True North. I put them there 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever. Everybody is compliant, everybody's adherent because there's no other choice. The other one is do like the McDougall, program, 3 days, 10 days, whatever. They're in a nice hotel. You can do it in a resort. And people also are going to change because the environment is so controlled. That is great. But I said, I don't have that luxury. I cannot do that with my patients. So I started looking around, Gustavo, and I found Plant Pure Communities. This is a non-profit organization led by Nelson Campbell. So I got in touch with him, and we could come together with the program Somos and Plant Pure Communities, where we give the food. So we give this food for 10 days. It's done by Nelson and his wife, Kim. She's an excellent chef. And we give the food to these people. And if you see Plant Pure Nation movie that he did, we started working with patients. We give them a 10-day program in Harlem, in the South Bronx, in Washington Heights, where we can give the food. And that was a miracle, Gustavo. As we were working to do the changes, people could be exposed to 10 days of this food that is plant-based, no oil, etc. So people would lose like 10 pounds. And we got like Eric Adams, which is the Brooklyn Borough president, that he's amazing, that he is basically plant-based and he reversed his diabetes and he's supporting us. And we have a bunch of people. New York is, I'm so blessed to live in New York, where the movement of plant-based is growing that fast. So, the truth is, so I started to go to the churches, to the local churches, because I said, I don't want to get these people out of the community. I want to work with the community. So as I told you, community health workers. And Nelson has a pod, like he has seeds. Pods are people that believe on this movement that are in the community. So I started working with them directly, and they work with my patients. And I started go to churches. And the pastor says, yeah, here, this is your church. We're not using it. We need to heal people. So the churches started to work with me as well. And you can see that in a few minutes in the video. And then we went to schools. And the school says, your doors are open for these patients. So again, and well, the story is that, Nelson is thinking, or one day he might, so he's, at times he's following me with a camera, so we look like two crazy, me and Nelson Campbell behind me, and his crew following me, and that's how we did that 6-minute video that you just saw. But this is a little bit the story. It's about the community, it's about the patients, it's about the physician. We try to connect all the dots and then make a change. I'm sorry, I know I'm talking too much. I can keep going and going. Sorry about that.
No, I just see your passion, and we are two passionate people. I am so passionate to bring this information to the Hispanic community, no matter where they are in the world.
Gustavo, and I want to basically just, that's something that I always, had a dream, if you may, of talking to you and having you, that you're so well known, in the virtual, which is new to me. So I'm just a physician seeing patients. That's my life. But you're so, well known. You have this basically virtual and social media. That's the way. So it would be lovely to do more things with you, Gustavo, in Spanish, because remember, I'm sorry, I can barely speak English, but Spanish is my language. I'm native. I'm working, just for you to know, my day goes from morning to night, goes in Spanish, because all my staff and all my patients are Latinos. I would say the vast majority, right. 99%. Same happening with our Chinese colleagues in Chinatown. Dr. Henry Chen is the lead in that group, and he has, again, we have 1 million Medicaid patients. We're trying to, again, start this movement. But you need to commit to this cause.
Yeah. Oh yes, I'm in, and I want to know, Dr. Ponieman, did I understand correctly that the people that attend the 10-day program there, they actually receive, the program is free, but they also receive the food, the daily food for 10 days, or how does that work?
Well, this is exactly. Thank you. And please, ask me questions, because I know that, I might confuse people more than clarify things. So this is what we do. We have it's called an Immersion Program, Jumpstart, and it's 10 days. So we do the biomarkers. We check, the classic cholesterol, diabetes, sugar diabetes. We check like triglycerides, the whole, cholesterol panel. We do weight. We do waist circumference for abdominal fat. So we do some measures. We do C-reactive protein. And this is at the beginning. Then we provide the food so people don't have to think. In the meantime, we do cooking classes, and we do coaching with these community health workers with the pod. So we train people to start doing the changes. But for the 10 days, yes, they don't have to think. They just have to warm the food up. And let me tell you, this is what is great working with the community. You see, I'm not a chef. I know you are, but basically, so this Latino were saying, well, but our flavor, the cultural sensitivity part, Gustavo, that's what works so well. So this, chefs that we hire from the community, they are Latinos, they put the sazon, what the Latinos want to see the food that is palatable. So basically, for the 10 days, we give the food, but we can always add, like some seasoning and some sazon and some, so that's the idea. We give them the food. Then at the end of the program, 10 days, as I said, Gustavo, miracle happened. People lose 10 pounds, cholesterol drop 40 points, diabetes, we start dropping or getting them off medication for blood pressure. I mean, the program works. I mean, Dr. McDougall has been working for what, 40 years. We know the program does work, Gustavo. It's just that people need to see it. And then let me tell you, I have to tell you how we work mostly. You know, the people that come to the doctor's office, I always tell the same thing. When a young male comes to my office, Latino, either he wants to talk about sex or the wife has sent him to the office, because usually young men don't come to the office. They're very macho. So I mostly see women in my office. So women are the ones who take this, you know, cooking and these demonstrations and this food to the house, and then, you know, it spills and the whole family benefits. And I have to tell you, I do have male patients, but most of our patients, you know, in the Latino world, again, very macho. If you go to the doctor, you have a weakness, unless your wife sends you or unless you want to discuss sex. And by the way, I think, you know, the other thing that I tell my patients, the bonus track is that sex life improves after, you know, a plant-based, you know, diet. And sorry, Gustavo, I can go keep going.
No, I wanted to ask you, because you've mentioned Dr. McDougall a few times. Do you have any other doctor, plant-based doctor, that you consider, that you admire, that you consider your mentors, that you've considered that you're standing on their shoulders? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I'm gonna tell you. And again, I don't want to name because I don't want to forget people. But I have to tell you, you know, I have to tell you one thing. The China study, and then I had the opportunity to meet T. Colin Campbell in person through Nelson, because the person that I'm working with is Nelson, and you know, and again, he's T. Colin's you know, son. And I have to tell you, I met T. Colin. This is the person, how, you know, modest and humble. So I met him and spent some time with him, and I'm, you know, I think he's my hero. Then I have to tell you, I had the opportunity to meet in person. Well, in New York, we're a few doctors here, Dr. Oswald, Dr. McMadden. They're doing great work, one in Montefiore, one in New York, in basically in NYU. She has the first plant-based clinic. I mentioned, you know, Eric Adams. Dr. Clapper, I met Dr. Clapper, such a sweet guy. He's also working in the universities and working with medical students, this is amazing, trying them to learn the plant-based movement. And I have to tell you, this is pretty much, but again, there's so many. And again, New York is changing, you know, meatless Mondays in schools and in hospitals. All these people that I just named have a lot to do with those movements, because they are the celebrities. Again, I'm just, you know, a physician working with patients, mostly Latinos, but and again, I've been a follower, you know, of Dr. McDougall, his books, the webinar, his, you know, I'm basically, you know, I have a subscription to his, you know, page. I have it on my phone for the recipes. Mary McDougall. I like to do muffins, and the first thing I do, I go into an app that they have, you know, and I can see for the ingredients, and I cook some of his meals. So anyway, so I think there's a lot of well, Neil Bernard. I'm not going to forget, you know, him. Dr. Ron Weiss. He's a guy that has a farm not very far from here. He's lovely, and he treats medicine in his farm with foods and crops that he basically grow in his farm. He's just sick of the medicine. He just basically moved to this farm and started doing medicine. Again, one of my heroes. So there, Dr. Esselstyn, which I don't have, you know, the pleasure of meeting in person, but he's one of my heroes. I don't know if you know, let me tell you a story. There was a great cardiologist in Argentina. He's deceased now, Dr. René Favaloro. He's one of the guys that started with, you know, bypass surgery. And actually, guess what? He was from the Cleveland Clinic, and they were sharing the lockers with Dr. Esselstyn, and he always talks about Dr. Favaloro. But I think the one who started, I said, the John Kabat-Zinn of, as I said, the mindfulness guys of plant-based medicine, to me, is like Dr. John McDougall. I think he's the number one.
Yes, well, I like, because I've heard you speak a few times, and sometimes other practitioners they talk a lot about a plant-based diet, and sometimes people get a little bit of the wrong idea that they need to eat just lettuce and kale and broccoli. But you really nail down that starch all the time, and I appreciate that, because without
Gustavo,
the starch we are hopeless.
Gustavo, I always tell people that I want, and again, one day we can discuss that, but I tell them at least, 4 servings of starch, or all what I do in my office is try to understand and try to pick up the starch that you love, because as Dr. McDougall, I've heard him saying it many, many times, we're starch eaters, we're starch lovers. That's our comfort food. I like what he says, and I tell that my patients, and I spend half an hour sometimes trying to understand. Now, and I tell them 4, and I tell them, you can have a salad, a day, and I press them to have a salad, again, at least. And when they reverse, the equation, they do 4 salads a day, I know that they're going to come. And I tell them, because patients like to see, a doctor, how did you lose 60 pounds? I lost 60 pounds. Gustavo and I have maintained them for at least now almost 3 years. And I tell them, when I went totally plant-based, and when I did my main food, the starch, sweet potatoes, the corn, the potatoes, the beans, the rice, the oatmeal, when you do pure rice, then pure starch, I'm sorry, that's when your everything, the equation starts, gets together, and people start losing the weight, right? So yeah.
Dr. Ponieman, I can't help but think about this number. If this is information people can get anywhere from the internet or any kind of government data, that there are about 50 million Spanish speaking people in the U.S. alone, and about 430 some million people, Spanish speakers in the world, which qualifies the Spanish language as the second most spoken language on the planet. So this is a lot of people. This is almost around half, 500 million people. How? I know you're passionate about bringing this information to all these people, about how a plant-based and a starch-based diet can prevent and reverse chronic illness and obesity. But this is a very ambitious goal. How do you see yourself going about this? I mean, how are we? I'm going to say we because I'm in it too. How are we going to reach? Is there hope? I mean, these industries have so much power, and sometimes, what do you think about this?
Well, I think that, and I thank you for that question, Gustavo. I think that the solution is, people are not stupid. People, know when you listen. People understand when you want their best, and we're working on their best interest. And I start from there. I start when I'm sitting with a patient one-on-one, on what we give, because when we do the jumpstart, we put like 36, and the people ask me, why 36? The jumpstart. My limit is 36, Gustavo, because the freezer that I have can only put 36, meals for 36 people. But when I put the 36 and I do it in Spanish, that's when, and this is a work that we've been doing with Somos. We advocate for the patient. We could get away with a co-payment. Medicaid patient had a co-payment of, I think, $2-3. My patients were telling me, and this is not me, this is our group, they were telling us that those $2 or $3 were basically the rice and beans for the day. So basically now they come to our office, it's Somos office, and they don't have to pay a co-payment. We see, again, patients, other people with private insurance come to me and said, I want a program like that. I said, no, because this is just for Medicaid patients. So we are getting, you see, when you go to the local church, or whatever that religion, it doesn't matter, and you talk to the guy in charge, and he says, this is lovely, because in the church, I've been doing Zumba classes, which is fantastic. But now my patients are talking about food, and I'm talking about food coming from the earth. This is natural food. This is unprocessed food. We do shopping with the patients. I do home visits. That's the change, Gustavo. And there's such a need, because I remember when I came to the hospital, I came from Buenos Aires. My English was broken. It was even worse than the one that I'm, speaking now. And I felt useless. But you know why I wasn't useless? Because I was the person talking to the patients. We're doing rounds, and the professor, the attending, was telling me, okay, ask this guy about the string. And I was, asking the patient in the ICU if he was trying to test for delirium and see if he would see the string, etc. So basically, these are things that happened to me when I came. And as I started to practice medicine, and basically as I started to work in those neighborhoods when people don't, what happened to us, we give the food and we also give dry food, right? So we give dry food, and usually we give examples of things that people can then shop for. So we give the first week so people can know what to shop for. So we give them like lentils and rice, because as you know, there's rice and there's rice. There's beans and there's beans. So we just give them the ones that are plain, that don't have any ads on. And my patients don't read English, but they appreciate, because they say, doctor, then I go to the aisle and I know what to pick, because even if it's not the exact same one, for example, they know what bread to pick or what, oatmeal to get, because they recognize the brand. And usually the brands, I know they change, so they might change, but in general, brands that do good things, usually, they have good product, good stuff. So that's how I'm working. Patients contact us on the phone. I give my phone to patients. I've never had any issues in 25 years in this country. We have coaches that talk to the patients and work with the patients in the community. So I think it's being closer to the patient. That's what, and they're not stupid. Patients. I've been listening. Being a physician for 30 years, always patients say, I don't want to be on medication for the rest of my life. I don't want to take medications. There's an option that it's, cheap, on a budget, delicious, because you can make it delicious, this food. Patients are not stupid. They're always going to, and some people, you know what? I'm not a fundamentalist, Gustavo. Some patients tell me, I'm not ready, but I'm going to try. They tried the 10 days. The idea is to get this free sample for 10 days. And be so healthy and be feeling so good that then they would like to bring it to their houses and change. That's yeah.
At least to have to give the patients, this is something that I'm just so passionate about. If doctors could give the patient the option, just explain to them, you can go this way. But of course, how can a doctor explain a plant-based diet if the doctor himself or herself doesn't follow a plant-based diet? But
I have to admit, Gustavo, that I've been there. I was the one telling my patients on a plateau, listen to this, on a plateau, so a little bit, the protein. I was there. I was wrong. I didn't know better as everybody. And I've heard this and I've read this so many times. I didn't get the education. I didn't get the knowledge. I had to do it on my own. I didn't, medical school still don't give the option. That's why what Dr. Clapper is doing is amazing. He's going to medical school and he's teaching medical students, Gustavo.
Right. So, I know, Dr. Ponieman, that you are with one foot in your car to go to the airport and one foot there in your house. So we're going to finish today, but I hope that we can do another webinar another time. And I don't know if you have any other closing thoughts to say. And
as you pointed, Somos, this group of physicians, again, almost 3,000 once a year. We happen to have this symposium. This time is in Rome. So I'm so excited. See if I can get, always I like to explore, go to places, find, new places where I can eat like plant-based food. I'm going to let you know, but nothing, just a couple of days. Then I'll be back. We just finished a jump start. We're going to start another one. The idea is to start, moving this jump start. I started in my office, but now we're moving to other offices. We started a jump start in Boston Road Medical Center, which is a place in the heart of the South Bronx. and this doctor is plant-based himself. You see, when you start looking around, this doctor believes on the plant-based movement. His son is plant-based, so he opened his doors. He says, let's do a jumpstart here. He's referring. My hope is that doctors are going to start referring patients, to us, to anybody that can help people with the plant-based. So Gustavo, I just, I'll take that, the word, and I want to do something more webinars. This is great because I don't know if 100 or 150 people are gonna watch this webinar. We can basically get like this information out. That's great. So this is It's been my pleasure, Gustavo.
Wow, thank you. I just wanted to do one. We've done a couple in Spanish. I wanted to interview you in English because almost everyone, I would think, knows someone that speaks Spanish, so they could let him know that there is someone out there or someone's trying to get the word out. So
I have to tell you that I'm for it. Of course, I'm much more comfortable, of course, in Spanish. That's what I do, during my day. I talk to patients in Spanish. But basically, if you think this helps in any way or form, or someone who say, oh, I know this person that is Spanish speaking, I'm going to send it to, Dr. P or anybody that does, in the Spanish world. And I'm willing to get more physicians, more clinics, because I want to, again, get this word, out. And again, following the work that, great leaders in the field has already, started for many, many years. But now if we can add that, tweak and do it in Spanish, that would be, amazing. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. And thank you very much. And have a wonderful trip. And I hope that maybe you'll take some pictures of some of the food that you were able to find. And we'll see you soon.
And Gustavo, if I see the Pope, because he's Argentinian, like what?
Yeah.
Argentinian, it's Gustavo Tolosa, Diego Ponieman, and the Pope. So we are three Argentinian. So maybe I'm going to say.
Maybe we have a chance to change the world. Yes.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.